So many people today are wrestling with their mental health, and it's not because necessarily they have some kind of genetic condition. Sure, trauma and the things that we've experienced have an impact upon us, but really, what if you're just like everybody else? What if you have a vehicle and it's called your life, it's called your mindset, it's called your emotional state, and what if you actually took the time to pay attention to your mental health, to your emotional state, to maintaining the vehicle that I believe the Creator has given you. And so much of that maintenance is about asking the right questions. Listen, you can tell if a person is clever by the answers that they give, but you can tell that somebody is wise by the questions that they ask. And so let me give you 4 coaching questions that can change your life. Hey, everybody, this is Abe Brown, and I'm just so excited to be coming back to you with another episode of the Flourishing podcast, where I want to actually spend a bit of time today talking about 4 coaching questions that can absolutely change your life. And you might be saying, well, why are we talking about questions today? And that's because I have found, and I often tell this to people, that I'm about 3 or 4 days away from literal insanity. And what I mean by that is that because of my existing mental health issues and some of the trauma from my past and the things that I'm still dealing with even to this day, I have to have a daily routine where every single day I do the same thing in the morning, first thing. People always say, why do you get up so early? Just last night, I got in past 11 o'clock from a flight, and this morning I was up at 3:30 again, not because I'm trying to be a hero, but because I have to continually ask myself a certain set of questions through my meditation, through my prayer, through my reflection, through my journaling. And these questions actually keep us very healthy. You know, Claude Levi-Strauss said the wise man doesn't give the right answers, but he poses the right questions. And so I want to be wise here today. I don't want to try to look like I'm giving you all the right answers, but I want to make sure that there's times where I have the opportunity to reflect. And so today, as I talk about these 4 coaching questions that can change your life, I hope that you see this as an opportunity for your self-care. So much of the self-care conversation, I think today, is so kind of convoluted, as if somehow you taking a bubble bath or drinking a glass of white wine or lighting a candle is authentic self-care. And I'm not saying that it can't be. Of course it can be, because self-care is very personal and it's very specific. But I also think that self-care has a lot to do with the constant process of dealing with our mental and emotional state. In the same way I have to maintain my vehicle, take my car in for regular oil changes, regular maintenance, because there's wear and tear that's going on. In that same way, self-care is so critical to your mental health. So many people today are wrestling with their mental health, and it's not because necessarily they have some kind of genetic condition. Sure, trauma and the things that we've experienced have an impact upon us, but really, what if you're just like everybody else? What if you have a vehicle and it's called your life, it's called your mindset, it's called your emotional state, and what if you actually took the time to pay attention to your mental health, to your emotional state, to maintaining the vehicle that I believe the Creator has given you. And so much of that maintenance is about asking the right questions. Listen, you can tell if a person is clever by the answers that they give, but you can tell that somebody is wise by the questions that they ask. And so let me give you 4 coaching questions that can change your life. The first coaching question that I think can change your life is this question that I always ask myself, and here it is. What if? What if? And you're like, what if what? Well, that's precisely the question. What if? This is a question about possibility and maximum potential. I think so many people live at a contented, mediocre, average state, not because they don't have massive boatloads of potential, but because they haven't yet learned to ask themselves regularly that question of what if. Now, if you never ask yourself the question, what if, then you will always settle for what is. What if is the opposite question to what is, because what is often speaks to this idea of staying at a steady state, being an average person, not really pushing forward to your maximum potential. But what if is that question that constantly pushes you higher. I'll tell you what, way back in 2008, I asked a what if question when I lost literally everything. And I'm not going to go into all the detail, but I lost all of my friends. I lost my marriage. I lost my home. I lost my financial health and financial wealth. And I found myself in this place where what is was so overwhelming. I was stuck in a moment that I felt like I couldn't get out of because I kept looking at what is. Now, I'm not saying that we should deny what is, because what is, it is what it is. But what if we started asking the question, what if? What if we went from what is, because that's my current state, to what if, which is my future state? I'll tell you what, there is a future state for you. There is a future state of potential. There is a future state of capacity. There is a future state of possibility. And when you begin asking that, I can tell you this from personal experience, that it absolutely changes your life. When I was coming out of the ashes of a broken marriage and a broken home and all of the things that I had lost, I began asking, what if? What if I could launch a business that could change the world? What if I could write that book? What if I could impact other people? What if this tragedy that I've experienced and the pain that I'm walking through could become a platform for others? Listen, what if questions will help you to imagine things the way you want them to be rather than the way that they are. I'll tell you what, they can spur a what if question. It will spur your imagination and it will help you create better. And I'll tell you what, I want you to think about what if questions in different areas with me here today. Like how about your health? What if I felt energetic, focused, and ready to go every single day? Imagine that kind of a question about your health. It's not, oh, what if I could fit into that pair of jeans? Or what if I could put that t-shirt back on? Those questions are sort of important. But I think when it comes to your health, it's a lot more about what if I felt energized every day? How about a question about your team? What if we doubled our sales this year? How about a question around your self-worth? What if I felt good about myself every single day, knowing that I'm making a contribution that is benefiting people all around me? How about a what if question around relationships? What if I could surround myself with healthy people rather than toxic people? How about a what if question around achievement? What if I finally finished the project that I'm thinking about? What if I finally wrote the book that I've been thinking about? What if I finally learned that instrument or that new language that I've been thinking about doing? How about a what if question around grief? What if this grief that I'm walking through, this pain, this hardship is meant to bring medicine and healing to other people? I'm not trying to be glib, friends, about what is. I understand that what is can often be devastating, and it can feel like your entire world is collapsing all around you. I have been there, but all I'm suggesting is shift from what is to what if. And when you do that, not only will you spur creativity and innovation in your life, but you will begin to identify problems even before they occur. Because what if is a question around possibility. It's a question around potential. And I'll tell you what, a what if question will force you to face and often change your assumptions. And so the first coaching question that I want to ask, and I encourage you to ask for your own mental health and your own self-care today, is what if? The second question that I want to propose that we ask is, so what? So what? Now, so what is a question that in my mind speaks to purpose and meaning. When somebody says to you, well, I just did this thing, and then your response is, so what? What you're asking somebody to define is, what is the significance of the thing? What is the significance of the thing? So if somebody says, I just bought a new house, And you're like, so what? And they say, well, hey, it's my first rental property. And I'm so excited because now I'm really starting to build wealth, generational kind of wealth that maybe I can pass on to my kids. That's a completely different purpose and meaning than just the statement that says, hey, I just bought a house. Now, listen, if your so what is powerful, your what if is possible. I'm going to say that again. If your so what is powerful, if your purpose, your meaning is powerful, then that so what, that what if question that you asked, I'll tell you what, it will absolutely come true. Why is that? Because purpose and meaning drives achievement and growth like nothing else. If you have a sense of purpose, if you have a sense of meaning, if you have a sense of a reason for living, a reason for being, a reason for business, a reason why you're in this relationship or in the situation that you're in, that will absolutely drive growth and achievement in ways that nothing else can. Why is that? Because you are most powerful where you are most passionate. You are most productive where you are most preoccupied. And so if you're trying to figure out where can I be productive, well, where are you preoccupied? Where is that place of purpose in your life? Where is the place where your passion is driving? Because that is the place of power within your life. You won't find it anywhere else. I'll tell you what, Dr. Viktor Frankl actually sort of formulated an entire school of psychology around this called logotherapy. What he found as a survivor of the Nazi death camps, the concentration camps in World War II, was when people had a sense of purpose and meaning, even if the conditions in those camps were unbelievably horrendous, as we all know they were, people were able to survive when they did, because they had a purpose, they had a sense of meaning. Maybe that sense of purpose and meaning was, I have to survive this so that I can be around to take care of my family after this horrible war ends. Okay, that was enough to keep people living a little bit longer than those who lost their sense of purpose and meaning. You know what? Sometimes you can't survive. Sometimes life overtakes you. But the evidence shows us that when people have a sense of purpose, they are most powerful, they are most productive, and frankly, they're even most profitable. Now, here's the thing. You can only become truly accomplished at something when you love it, when you are driven by that sense of purpose. And so that is why the what if question always needs to be followed up by the so what question. That takes us to the third coaching question that can change your life, and that is, then how? So I begin by saying, what if? That speaks to the idea of possibility. Then I go to so what? And that speaks to the idea of purpose. Now I take a look at then how? And that speaks to problem solving and mitigating the barriers that might stand in your way. Now, I'll tell you what, I am so blessed in my life and in our business and in the work that we do. I don't mind saying it. I give all the glory to God because I don't deserve really any good thing, that's for sure. But I'll tell you, in our work, in our company, I get to work with Fortune 500 companies. I get to work with small mom and pop operations, plumbing companies, electrical companies, restaurants, finance companies. I mean, you name it. And we've also worked and continue to work with First Nations across Canada. These are our Indigenous peoples. And right now, the last I counted, we're up to about 35, 40 different First Nations across Canada. Actually, last night, I got home late. That was because I was working with a First Nation up north here in Canada for the last several days. Why am I telling you this? Because many of the times when I'm working with these communities, the groups of people that I work with, and this is where my empathy really gets kind of triggered, if I can use that term, is with people who have significant barriers, right? And now it could be just a barrier to launching their business. It could be a barrier to getting a job. Barriers are a reality of life. I think we know that. I mean, I'm not sure what your barrier is today. The barrier that you're facing could be different from the barrier that I'm facing. Maybe your barrier is more internal. In other words, it could be your mindset that needs to shift. Sometimes we self-sabotage, don't we? Sometimes we are our own worst enemy, if I can use that term. Sometimes Abe doesn't have to worry about anybody around him holding him back. It's the story that I'm telling myself. It's the voices inside my own head that sometimes hold me back. So back to barriers. Sometimes those barriers are internal. Sometimes those barriers are external. In other words, it could be the economy. It could be, well, there's no jobs around here. It could be, I have a business idea, but I need some financing. It could be a lack of relationships. It could be all kinds of things. You get it. Some barriers are internal. Other barriers are external. Whatever your what if exposes possibility, and then your so what kind of helps you understand, that's your purpose. I can promise you the then how is the sort of the next most important question to look at. Why? Because barriers will always exist. I don't know anyone who's barrier free. Sometimes people's barriers are more obvious than others, but even if you're like Elon Musk and you are, this massive billionaire with all kinds of creativity and resources and ideas, he still faces barriers as well. And so what am I saying? We have got to figure out a way to mitigate the barriers. I can't be held back. I don't want to give power to my limitations. I want to take power away from them by problem solving. I often say this to people. Why are you arguing for your limitations? Right? I'll tell you what, your limitations are already arguing against you. You don't need to argue for them. How about you argue against them? How do we do that? By effective problem solving. So let me give you kind of a little problem solving matrix that I have found really, really helps. And I'm going to try to make this really simple. I don't know, maybe they'll throw the words up on the screen so that makes it a bit easier. But here's the first thing. Number one, if you're going to solve problems, list all the problems and the barriers, the obstacles that you face. Just write them down. They don't have to be even accurate. It's really about what do you perceive is holding you back, because your perspective matters. Of course, your perspective matters. And so just write it down. Don't sit there and fact check yourself like you're some CNN reporter. Just go ahead and write them all down. What do you perceive is holding you back? Then take that list. It could be 5 things. It could be 1 thing. It could be 100, and divide the full list into controllable versus non-controllable. So whatever you perceive your barriers or obstacles to be, some of those things are completely non-controllable. Like you cannot control the whole economy. I mean, you cannot control the government. You cannot control rates of taxes. You can't even control sometimes your kids. Sometimes you can't control definitely, your husband, your wife, other people in your life. So all of those things would kind of go under non-controllable. And then you have this other list that's left, and that's the stuff that you can control. So there is always something you can do. Now, if you have a list of non-controllable and a list of controllable, then the third step is pretty easy. Make a list of all the resources that you have. Okay, so I started by just listing my barriers and my obstacles. And then I take that list, I break it down. Non-controllable, controllable. Okay, simple enough. Then I list all the resources that I have. Now, really important little footnote about resources. Some resources are external, money, other relationships. Maybe you got lots of stuff, maybe you have land, you have properties, you got vehicles, you have things. Those are external. But other resources are internal. I'll tell you what, you have education. You have completed a course of studies. You have learned certain things about mental health and resilience. You have expertise in different areas of your life. And so you got 2 lists now. You got a list of problems and obstacles and barriers. Okay, great. There's non-controllable and controllable. But then you also counteract that with a list of resources. Because if you don't list your resources, you might think, well, Abe, I got nothing to throw at the problems that I'm faced with here today. But I'll tell you what, you always have more than you think you have. Now, I'm not trying to, strong arm you into thinking, hey, I'm wealthy or something like that. No, I'm not like a positive thinking extremist. But I think that you have an unbelievable amount of untapped resources. No matter how inadequate you feel, and I have been there, I'll tell you what, there's another gear in you. There's more in you that meets the eye, but you have to push yourself. You have to be the one. No one else can do this. This doesn't come from the outside. This comes from the inside, where you recognize I have the resources that I need, not necessarily to accomplish the whole goal, but just to take the next step, right? You see, because sometimes we look at the whole goal and we think that's overwhelming. Okay, it is. But if I take the next step, what that's going to do is open up more resources to me, because every step I take that moves me in a forward direction unlocks greater resources. Don't we all need greater resources? So sometimes this is, you just put your head down and you just keep going. And I know this as a runner. I'll tell you what, I run every day. And there's times, even though I run every day, where I feel tired and I feel like, man, I just can't go on today. And so what do you do in those moments? You just dig deeper. You just put your head down and you run and you run and you run. And what ends up happening is, as you go, the energy comes. So list all the problems and obstacles, divide that list, non-controllable, controllable. Then I list all my resources, both external and internal. Then the fourth thing is this. Really simple. I apply all my resources to the controllables, not the non-controllables. The non-controllables is really interesting. You got to kind of pray the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. That's the non-controllable. But then the prayer also says the courage to change the things I can. That's the controllable. And so I take all my resources and I apply them to the things that I can control, right? I'm not going to sit here and worry and freak out over all the stuff I can't control, because that's just a dumb waste of my time and my energy. I can't control it anyways. So why would I put even an ounce of my energy into that? I'm going to put everything I got into the stuff that I can. And you know what you're going to discover, friends, is that the list of controllable obstacles will go down. And as that list goes down, this non-controllable list will often take care of itself. And so the first question that you've got to ask yourself as a coaching question, and these are 4 questions I ask myself just to stay sane, is what if? The second question is, so what? The third question is, and how? How am I going to do this? And that takes me to the fourth question, which is, and when? When am I going to do all of this stuff? Now, this has to do with priorities. Priorities are the most important thing in your life. You do not need to worry about managing time if you manage priorities. This is really, really important. You know, there's a German proverb, maybe it's African, maybe it's Swedish. I don't know. I've been saying it's German, but who knows? Maybe it's not. And it says something like this. The proverb says, if you chase 2 rabbits, both will escape. And what that means is often we're chasing too many things. Your problem is not that you don't have goals. Your problem is that you are trying to accomplish too many goals, and then you get overwhelmed, and then you just quit them all. And so why not have a not to-do list? Okay. And right now I'm filming this. This is being filmed. Today is October the 18th, 2024. The reason I'm telling you that is we are like 2.5 months away from 2025. Crazy. Like we blinked and 2024 is basically done pretty much. And we're just about to head into the brand new year, 2025. That's wild. Now, why am I saying that? Because in 2025, what if you just made a promise to yourself, and the promise was, I'm not going to have 90 resolutions in 2025. I'm going to give my attention to 1, 2, maybe 3 big things. That's it. But those things, I'm going to do them well. I promise you, if you have a smaller, more significant list, you will always accomplish more than if you have a bigger, bloated list. I think so many people, have this big bloated list. I remember one time I was talking to this lady, I was her coach, and she said, hey coach, I want to tell you my goals for the year. And she had like 40 goals, and just me looking at her list, I was tired just going through that with her, and I wasn't even the one doing the list. And of course, I counseled her, I coached her to reduce the size of her list so that she could increase her effectiveness. Because you spread out amongst 90 goals is not nearly as effective as you focused on 2 or 3. And so in 2025, I hope your mantra is, I'm planning to neglect everything that's not connected to my priorities. Now, only you can define your priorities. Me, of course, I'm married. I have business partners. I have some close friends, and I have a relationship with God. And so I like to kind of bring all of those parties into the priority list for Abe, right? Definitely my wife. I mean, I don't get to just set my own priorities. I want to bring her into that conversation, and she brings me into her conversation about her priorities, and we kind of come together on that. Of course, business partners, that makes sense. The Creator God, of course, that makes sense. But once you've set them, then what you've got to do is you've got to plan to neglect everything that's not connected to them. Stop worrying about managing your time. Just manage your priorities. Should your priority be to, scroll through TikTok 2 hours a day? like, should that be your priority? I don't know. Should your priority be like 4 hours of gaming a day or 3 hours of Netflix? Like, I'm not judging. I just want you to think that the problem isn't that you're not managing your time. Your problem is you're not managing your priorities, because your priorities will reflect in how you manage your time. But if you don't get the priorities right, then you'll just be scrolling on TikTok and you'll blink, and 2 hours later, you'll come out of this internet black hole and you'll be like, oh my goodness, where did that last 2 hours go? Again, I'm not judging. You can do that if you want, but I can promise you the only one who's making money off of you being on TikTok for 2 hours, unless you're like a creator and an influencer there, is the owners of TikTok. And they love the fact that you're mindlessly, flipping through, the latest thing. But the question is, what are you meant to be doing with your life, right? And I want you to think about that. Sure, I don't have a right to tell you what to do with your life. Of course not. I'm trying to figure it out for myself. But I'll tell you what if you began to ask yourself that question? And so these 4 questions that I have, and the reason I share them with such passion is because they're really self-care questions. So much better than, I just need to go get a massage. Like, get a massage, do all of that stuff, have a bubble bath, light some candles, do all of that. But ask yourself these 4 questions. Number 1, what if? That's about possibility. Number 2, so what? That's about purpose. Your purpose matters. Number 3, then how? How am I going to get this done? That is about problem solving. And then number 4 is and when. That question, my friends, is all about priorities, so that you put things in their proper place within your life. And so thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I'll tell you what, at Flourishing Workplace, we are unbelievably committed to changing the world by changing the workplace. We think that if we can create and support organizations to create workplaces that are flourishing, that will not only make our workplaces more positive, but it's also going to make them more productive and more profitable. So please do go to flourishingworkplace.com. Tons of free resources there. Reach out. Let's hook up. Let's connect. Thanks so much. We'll see you in our next episode.